welcome to today's session, the last session of the day in the global stage. My name is Karen Osman, and I'll be moderating this session today on experiential travel, the real deal, why selling local experiences matters. So joining me on the panel today, we have His Excellency, Saif Saeed Gobash, Director General of Abu Dhabi Tourism and Cultural Authority. We have Izam Kazim, CEO of Dubai Tourism. We have Simon Mead, Head of Operations at Arabian Adventures, and Andy Levi, Head of Marketing at La Pearl. So Arabian travel market, the theme for this market this year is experiential travel, which takes in adventure, culture, heritage, wellness, spa, sports, theme parks, halal and cruise segments, all of which are trending globally. According to a report from Colliers International, experiential tourism is set to power the UAE hotel, travel and leisure receipts to 236 billion by 2026. So with no further ado, let's see what our panel has to say on this global trend. So we're very lucky today to have two tourism boards with us from the UAE. So let's begin. Abu Dhabi Tourism. I mean, Abu Dhabi is really renowned for a cultural positioning with art and culture, yet it also offers water parks and theme parks. What's your strategy for 2017 when it comes to experiential travel?
Thank you, Karen. Our strategy for 2017, and perhaps for the next few years, is to leverage our very unique assets, our very unique sort of tools in terms of providing an experiential travel experiences of distinction. But if you'll allow me to add as well to that, I think we're not only doing experiential travel, but transformative to a certain degree, and I can give you a couple of examples. Abu Dhabi has a lot of cultural assets. Abu Dhabi has assets that you can classify as elements of urban culture, museums and whatnot. We have museums in Al Ain that showcase the rich history of the UAE. We have the Louvre Abu Dhabi opening at the end of this year. We're also working on the Guggenheim Abu Dhabi and the Zayed National Museum, all to enrich the Saadiyat Cultural District. These are quite unique and rich in terms of the experience it provides the traveler. But I also call them transformative because the narrative will also, in a sense, allow you to depart questioning a lot of the things that you thought you knew, but now you're hesitant about. The Louvre Abu Dhabi talks about universality. It compares and contrasts civilizations across different eras. The Louvre Abu Dhabi is going to showcase antiquities and artifacts from our region to visitors from all over the world. That is experiential travel. Be it a Western European coming to Abu Dhabi or an Asian traveler or even someone from the region coming and looking at items that we have either owned in Abu Dhabi or borrowed from museums in the UAE or neighboring countries, and telling people the history of this region, that civilizations used to live here a very long time ago, adds to that respect and dialogue. Yeah. So that's transformative travel. Yeah. Part of experiential. Of course, we have other things. We have the theme parks. They're good for families. They're all affordable, good value for money. And in Al Ain, we have also other very authentic experiences. We have the Tilal Al Ain Resort. It's the only resort, I believe, in the Middle East where you can hunt, if that's your thing. We have Al Marzoum Resort, who are with us at ATM, where bustards are released. You go in Land Rovers and are taught how to hunt them with falcons. Don't have that anywhere else in the world. And you're taught by Bedouins from Abu Dhabi. Yeah. That's, I think, the strength of what we try to deliver in Abu Dhabi and the UAE in terms of experiential travel. Yeah. Numbers-wise, this year we expect to close at around 4.9 million tourists. In cruise, we expect to, achieve 250,000 visitors in the upcoming season. And experiential travel does play a very strong role in achieving these numbers.
Yeah, so it's a part of your strategy. Yes. Moving forward. And of course, Dubai very much known for the biggest, the best, Burj Khalifa, and so on and so forth. How does that? Do you find that those types of attractions overshadow the more authentic cultural side of the city, or do you find they complement each other quite well?
I think in real terms they do complement, of course. But I think historically, if you look at when we set out the strategy for Dubai for tourism, we looked at increasing the numbers that we had achieved in 2012, which was 10 million, to double that and get 20 million visitors by 2020. So the strategy was devised to clearly identify the key propositions of Dubai. And of course, we talked about Dubai must move away from being a city that you must visit to a city that you must experience. So that's very, very in line with the theme for ATM this year as well. So what we've done is we've focused a lot on highlighting some of the key propositions that existed in Dubai, but not many people were familiar with. Things that I would say that even being residents and locals of Dubai, we might have taken for granted, where we were showcasing people the new developments in Dubai, such as Burj Khalifa, Burj Al Arab, and the other landmarks, which were great to position Dubai globally and on the global map. However, the older parts, the souks, the Shindaga area, the Fahedi area, the Abra side, and also the gold souks, the spice markets, the textile markets, things that exist in Dubai, those experiences are quite unique. And the more we started taking I would say, the mature travelers to those areas, we realized that the depth of Dubai's offering becomes much more relevant. And then also making sure that we expand on that offering and making sure people realize that it's not only just, because we're not focusing on just doubling the numbers of visitors, we want to make sure that people realize that Dubai is a destination that you can spend a lot of time in to really start scratching the surface of what Dubai has to offer. Also the fact that we want to increase advocacy and repeat visitation of Dubai, because after all, if you're looking at Dubai's fundamental offer, we're talking about a family destination. So we talk about the cultural rich, we talk about the heritage site, we talk about the art districts, the opera house that was brought online recently, the new theme parks that have come up as well, to add the flavor to the existing ones such as Global Village. So now you have IMG World of Adventures with specific IPs, global known brand names there. Same thing with Dubai Parks and Resorts, bringing in cultural experiences from Bollywood as well as other great Hollywood brands as well to be present there. So all of these will really create that experience that becomes quite important. And we've seen a growth in those numbers, and we talked about the statistics. The growth that we've seen over last year, we saw about a 5% increase in numbers. We've hit close to 15 million visitors, and in the beginning first quarter of this year we've seen another 11% increase in visitor numbers, and we've closed in at about 4.57 million visitors in the first quarter.
Amazing. And has the average length of stay increased?
Yes.
Are you seeing an increase in that area because
we're
of
seeing
the offerings?
Length of stay definitely increasing as well, and also what we're doing is we're making sure that the type of hotels that are opening up in Dubai allow for that. Because I think people were very aware of the 5-star offerings that we had. And when we talked about doubling the number of visitors, we needed to focus on also increasing the key source markets that we go after. So traditionally we were strong in 6 or 7. We made sure that we continue to inform those travelers more about the depth of Dubai's offering, but then also opened up to about 20 source markets with a close eye on the next 10, because again, there's socioeconomic, geopolitical changes and dynamics. Then we need to be agile to be able to move our focus accordingly. And therefore we introduce incentives to encourage investment in 3 and 4 star segment hotels. And we've seen an uptake in that as well. And we've moved from when the tourism strategy was announced, about 80,000 hotel rooms, to now we have about 104,000 hotel rooms, and with a much bigger mix of offering, besides the holiday homes, apartments and villas, making it much easier for people to come in and spend their time, maybe spend less on the hotel or the option in terms of rooms, and spend more time in experiencing what Dubai has to offer.
Yeah. So that diversification is really working for
Absolutely.
For your destination. Okay, great. I mean, you mentioned focusing on families. Are you finding that you're attracting different types of people, whether it's couples, honeymooners, business travelers, for different types of experiences, or
Yes.
do you have data for that?
When we've identified the markets initially, we've done a lot of research on the ground and within the markets and the offices that we have around the world. So we identified, and well, we loosely defined the term of family to cover anything from honeymooners and newlyweds all the way through to the empty nesters, parents with kids who are older, who have left home and are traveling alone, and anything in between. And we've identified that in each market, there are different segments that need to be attracted with different propositions, and they look at different opportunities of spend. Some people might be willing to spend a lot more in a hotel and the experiences within the resort and the hotel itself. Others might spend less in a hotel and spend a lot more within the city. And even when it comes to traveling parties as well, you have some that travel with a much smaller group, while when I look at the GCC traveling pattern as well, you will see that their brothers, sisters, with their spouses, with their kids, travel in bigger groups as well. So each one of them has a completely different pattern of travel. Each one of them has a different proposition. And what's been quite successful for us is the marriage between the private and public sector. So whatever it is that we're working on, the agenda that we've actually established for ourselves and the strategy that we've mapped out is very clearly aligned with what the private sector and the public sector are both going to be delivering. So the private sector will be investing in the hotels, investing in the experiences, and also in everything else that the tourists would be benefiting from. And in return, the government also will be creating all the, let's say, the roads, the infrastructure, to make sure that those accessibility and everything is also looked after as well, to make it seamless.
Yeah. So alignment of all parties
Absolutely.
is critical. Yeah. And Simon, I mean, from your point of view, what kind of trends have you seen for people coming in for experiential travel across the different segments, from family to couples to? Do you see any trends in that area, or?
Yeah, we find that we've got a lot more experiences to offer families with regards to, and combining experiences. We're in the very, very fortunate position with the amount of money that Abu Dhabi is investing in experiences, the same with Dubai and the other Emirates. Fujairah especially, Sharjah especially, Fujairah, Ajman. And we're finding the families will combine those cultural experiences with regards to either going to the desert in the morning and seeing how Bedouins fly the falcons, or whether it be for the new theme parks, Dubai Parks and Resorts or IMG. And they will combine those cultural with the modern and the big and wonderful experiences that you can get in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So we are really in a very, very fortunate position where we've got all these facilities being built, along with the infrastructure, as Issam mentioned, that we can get our customers around the UAE with such ease these days, and everything is accessible. And we're also finding, couples-wise, with regards to the more luxury travellers, are still looking for that experience where they can call our tailor-made team and actually speak to somebody and find out what they can do different in Dubai or in Abu Dhabi or in the other Emirates, and actually experience a lot more of the cultural side. Both Issam and His Excellency will remember that 3 years ago we had 14,000 Chinese come to Dubai for an incentive, and we spread them across the whole of Dubai. You know, we had them in Ferrari World for 2 nights, 8,000 each night. We took them all to Sharjah. Every one of those 14,000 went and experienced the Sharjah museums, which are fantastic facilities and such a range of museums. You know, all from aviation museum to the cultural heritage of the UAE. So there's so many experiences for people to come, and which also feeds back to Issam saying about the length of stay of our guests.
Yeah.
People are discovering that there is so much more to do in the UAE. We find it especially with Australia, where the average length of stay used to be 2 days, and now it's getting longer and longer and longer. Even my own relatives come and go, oh, we stayed for 2 days, but we really wish we'd stayed a lot longer.
Yeah. And are you finding the trend towards multi-emirate visits? Or, I mean, Dubai and Abu Dhabi are very well known globally, but do you find the interest in the other Emirates as well for some more authentic UAE experiences?
Yeah, we do. We also, apart from Dubai and Abu Dhabi, we've got customers going to Ras Al Khaimah, we've got customers going to Sharjah, we've got customers going to Ajman, we've got customers going to Fujairah, and they'll do a dual stay. So they will stay in Dubai, they'll stay in Abu Dhabi, but then also experience some of the smaller Emirates as well and what they have to offer.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, so in terms of types of experiential travel, I mean, we've already touched on family travel. And of course, it's a focus for many tourism boards, and options such as theme parks and shows of entertainment have really widened that offering. How important are developments such as La Perle, and we've got Andy here, you know, to that destination's offering? Are you really finding that the theme parks and the shows and the entertainment are really a powerful draw for people coming here?
Yeah, so I guess I'll take it. So for Le Pearl, just to give everyone context if they don't know, so Le Pearl is a permanent show that'll be opening at the end of this summer at Al Habtoor City. And it's being produced and created by Franco Dragone, who's created shows such as Le Rêve and House of Dancing Water in Macau. And so for us, touching upon Issam's point, is that it's adding another cultural dimension to Dubai and the UAE, and adding to the tourist and local experience, and giving them a different dimension and a different flavor of what they think of Dubai, what they know about Dubai, and what they expect when they're coming here, and hopefully adding to that stay and adding to their evening planning as well.
Yeah. And from a tourism point of view, are you finding that the demand is there for these theme shows?
Sure. I think from our side, as Andy pointed out, it's very important that we don't forget that the makeup of Dubai's population, for example, is about 20% of native and 80% of people who have actually chosen Dubai to be their home. So there's a lot of the VFR aspect that Simon highlighted as well, which becomes very, very important. So knowing that there are these shows, permanent shows, that with facilities that are purpose-built for these kind of events, that I would say immersion within that experience becomes unbelievable, something that people will be talking about. And it's in a show that most people will not go once. They will make sure that they go back again and again and taking their friends and their family with them. And with that in mind, obviously it just adding that color and that flavor becomes something that we want to leverage more and more on.
Yeah, and I guess in that respect, your job becomes even easier because you have so much to offer in terms of the visitor. Is there ever too much to do? Do you ever struggle to try and get everything into your itineraries from an experiential point of view?
I don't think there's too much to do. I think sometimes we stretch ourselves a little bit too far because we want to support everybody. We want to support all the Emirates, but sometimes it's just not possible.
Yeah.
And then, of course, people have their preferences of their perception before they arrive in the UAE of what is the UAE, what's Dubai, what's Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it does become tough, but at the same time, you've got such a range of facilities and experiences to offer people now. And at the end of the day, I think we've all got a responsibility with the amount of money that's being invested by UAE government to promote all the facilities within the UAE, not just, we're part of the Emirates Group and we're based in Dubai. However, we feel a responsibility for the whole of the UAE, because not all our guests want to come to Dubai.
Yeah.
And we understand that. Not all of our guests fly with Emirates, and we have the opportunity to meet them and give them a real experience of the Middle East and partially, as I said, an education of what they may have thought what the Middle East was before and what it actually is once they start to experience it.
Yeah.
That's not for everyone, right? So
Not necessarily for everyone.
Can I comment? Seems you don't like me, so we're in Abu Dhabi. We have also 3 big districts. We have Abu Dhabi, and we have Al Ain, and we have the Al Dhafra region, which was formerly known as the Western region, Al Gharbiyya. And the beauty about every district as well is that I can provide a visitor for who wishes to spend a longer period, different types of experiences. Abu Dhabi can give you that cultural element, can give you that leisurely experience, and so on and so forth. Eco-tourism as well. We have some islands where they can experience that. Sustainable tourism. Masdar provides experiences as well for tourists. Al Ain, culture and nature. It's about an hour and a half from Dubai. It's about an hour and a half as well from Abu Dhabi. Very central location. You have historic sites dating back to the Bronze Age and the Iron Age and so on and so forth. And these you cannot build. You either have them or you're not. So how do you curate that experience and make it appeal to everyone? So the trick is as well, and that's a struggle sometimes I have with my colleagues, is it can't be too geeky. It has to be appealing in a sense. At the same time, the Al Dhafra region is pure desert. Star Wars was filmed there. And you saw the dunes there. They're out of the movies, literally and figuratively speaking. And over there, we have Qasr al-Sarab and all these desert experiences and activities which we can offer as well, which are very unique for those who want to escape, forget themselves, discover their new selves, and also just retreat. And we complement that with authentic things. And especially now in the summer, we started off with the Al Mirfa sailing competition and festival last week. Very unique, very traditional boats, dhow boats racing and all of that. We'll have the Camel Beauty Contest. It's been mentioned a million times in the New York Times and the Washington Post. It is part of our culture, but we made it so that it can also appeal, attract, and engage a visiting tourist. We have the Dates Festival, but on dates, in Abu Dhabi, we try to do with dates what in the West they do with wine. So you can come to the Dates Festival, you can learn about the types of dates. You can come to the Oasis in Al Ain. Al Ain has the only World Heritage sites in the UAE, 17. And we're opening them up to the public. You come to the Oasis, you look at the different types of trees. We have experiences where for those who are daring and want to learn a thing or two, they can climb the palm tree and start to gather the dates with the farmers, and that's also a very nice, authentic experience. So you covered that element. Then you have the food, participating restaurants that serve you gastronomical offers that stem from dates. And last but not least, we're announcing very soon, and I can share that with you. You said try to talk about things that the public doesn't know. Some of the factories in Abu Dhabi are going to open up their doors to tourists to show you what we can do with dates, how they can end up into date syrup or other various products, and that's unique. That's experiential, and that's something that you consume, and all of these things make you happy at the end of the day.
And I think just to add to His Excellency's point as well as what Simon mentioned as well, I think there's becoming this pattern now where a lot of people coming to Dubai, especially with the further field that they come from, UAE as a whole and the size of the offering itself is quite accessible across the board. And there's that gray line as far as they're concerned. We came to Dubai, whoever's coming to Dubai, but we've experienced the Grand Mosque, we've experienced Ferrari World, and they don't know that those are actually Abu Dhabi offerings as well, and vice versa. And I think that becomes something where we want to make sure that at the end of the day, it's not just the internal stakeholders that are actually looked after, but it's also the end user after all, because they are the tourists who are our guests, and they are the ones that we want to make sure customers always happy, and we want to make sure that the offering is really covered in the best way possible.
Yeah, and communicated in the most appropriate way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we've talked about family travel. We touched on MICE travel, meetings, incentive, conference and events, and I know, Your Excellency, you're a board member for the Abu Dhabi National Exhibitions. Are you seeing a demand from MICE travelers for experiential travel?
We do. A lot of the organizers and a lot of the events that we attract, I believe, come because of the things that we can offer on the side. We've won a lot of events. The Special Olympics was announced very recently. We expect 10,000 participants in 2019. World Skills is happening, the largest vocational skills training competition. It's happening this year with 7,000 delegates. The Diabetes Federation is coming with 15,000 delegates at the end of this year. And what we do with the Convention Bureau and with ADNIC and the overall ecosystem is what enables Abu Dhabi to draw these events. ADNIC today is the largest conference facility in the Middle East. I know that there are certain expansions in Dubai. We can have that discussion when you guys are done, but today we are. And we're taking advantage of that. And ADNIC is centrally located as well. And the beauty about it is that it's also perched by the sea. So we can also offer these things. And then we have other facilities as well, such as at the Yas Marina Circuit. It also has a conference facility, and you can complement that, and we've seen that a lot. When you talk about sort of, the high net worth and the sort of the elite in a sense, I've seen events in Abu Dhabi where dinners have taken place on the circuit, where certain high-profile drivers flew in to give, add to that experience of these business delegates, where we've complemented it with, hours on the track and things along these lines. So that's where you can have, business tourism go hand in hand with experiential sort of travel.
Yeah, and it works really well. And from your perspective, are you seeing that demand for, experiential travel to be incorporated in itineraries for the more, I would say, business meeting?
We do. We had a large group last week, 13,000 people. ESAM knows we had 13,000 people here from an American company. And out of that 13,000, 3,500 of those were their qualifiers, their premium sellers. And those people, they're looking for a really special experience for them. And that real experiential travel experience that makes them feel special, because they're the ones they're investing in. They're the ones they're relying on to push their business forward. So they will pick smaller, more intimate experiences to give them that experience and make them feel special.
Yeah.
And there's the whole range of those experiences in the IE to do that.
To do that, yeah. Okay. So moving on now to communicating the experience. I mean, you know, it's all very well having these, but in terms of communication, technology and digital, of course, are significant platforms, but still incredibly competitive. What forms of digital are you using to communicate some of these experiences, and how successful have they been? So, for example, bloggers and influencers, social media, video 360, all of that. And I'd like to start maybe with Andy, because I know you've had a lot of experience when it comes to pushing out content, particularly Facebook and live Snapchat series and things like that. Could you share maybe some of your experience in that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, everyone here has a phone, right? Or a tablet or whatever. Everyone is a publisher these days. Everyone is a media company, you know, whether they have, you know, 500 Facebook followers, 1 million Snapchat fans, or Instagram stories. And so, you know, the cost of entry in terms of really sharing the stories and sharing the vision or what the behind the scenes are is very low. You know, it's a efficient and, I don't want to say cheap, but an easy way to really publish what's going on. And I think, you know, in ties to experiential being a theme and experiential just and transformative being trends, those are the things that people are really seeking at the end of the day. They can get the TV spot, or they can get the radio spot, or they can get, you know, the magazine article. Like, everyone gets that, but what is that added oomph? What is that added value? And through, you know, people, you know, whether it's, you know, a celebrity or a dignitary or whomever sharing things through Snapchat and Instagram, you're getting that peek, you know, into behind the scenes, and you feel like you're valued. You're a valued either, you know, friend or consumer or customer that's getting that when you go experience that event, you have that nugget that you tuck away in your head, and you can say to, you know, whoever you go, hey, did you know this happens because of this? Or like the date example, I had no idea. So like to know the sophistication behind that, you know, and there's a story that the consumer, the tourist can really add to and flesh out. And then when they go home, they can say, hey, I went to Abu Dhabi and experienced this factory, and this is how this date was made, or this is how this process takes place. That's really, you know, from my perspective, that currency that tourists are seeking these days.
So, I mean, in the audience, we've obviously got a lot of travel professionals, many of them promoting, you know, this destination. What advice would you give them if they were looking to start promoting their products or services from a social media technology perspective?
I mean, it depends on, you know, what the angle is, but there's never too much to give away. And that's something from our side. You know, we're having this massive show that, you know, 1,300 people will see 2 times a night. And for us, we want to show behind the scenes. We want to show the experience. It won't take away from the show, or it won't take away from the experience. It'll only enhance it and add to it. So I think that's something to keep in mind. You know, if you're in the travel industry, is just because you're sharing something, just because you're showing something, it doesn't steal that experience or take away that experience. It only, you know, from our perspective, whets the appetite for people to want to experience more and understand, like, oh my God, I have to go to this place because I want to experience the beauty that's in the deserts, you know, through an Arabian adventure, or I can't believe I got to meet this person, or, you know, the Salt Bay guy. You know, that seems to be a big trend these days, where everyone's taking their photo of the guy dropping salt on meat. You know, but people want that, even though you've seen it probably 1 million times. They want to say that they've been there, and like I said, that to me is that currency. So think about that as a tour group or the tour industry. Is what's the thing that you're trying to convey to people that you really can't convey in words or in a sentence? And that's where these mediums have that beauty, especially Instagram and Snapchat, is you can get a snapshot in 5 seconds of something that you'll probably, you know, spend hours, you know, whether it's with your agency or internal team, trying to craft that perfect sentence.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on now to technology even more advanced, looking at things like virtual reality, for example. How, as a tourism authority, are you using some of these newer technologies to promote your experiences within Dubai and Abu Dhabi? Nobody wants.
I think from our perspective, there's a lot that we've been working on recently on building relationships, again, with the local stakeholders, of course, but also with global players. And as Andy rightfully pointed out, people are moving away from the staged and choreographed imagery of hero shots of a destination to make that decision. And they want to know what's the real authentic experience that people are having. I'll give you just a few quick examples. One of them is what was launched a couple of years ago by His Highness Sheikh Hamdan, the Crown Prince, which was the hashtag #MyDubai. It was literally to create an autobiography of Dubai through the eyes of the people who live in Dubai. But that quickly became a trend where anybody visiting Dubai would hashtag #MyDubai as well. And that experience of people genuinely going in and around Dubai and sharing that with their friends and family became something we just have to amplify or redirect people's attention to, and that does the job for you. The other thing that we did was we were working very closely with some of the local players like the Dubai 360 team, who have some beautiful imagery of Dubai. And then we built our own relationship with Facebook in San Francisco. And we've married those things together in the sense that they recently, just 4 days ago, had a developer program, which is very, very niche, launching their next steps and next stages of VR and promoting what VR can actually do for businesses and for destinations. And Dubai was showcased within this realm as well. So I think it was, again, an opportunity because it was aired then after that live across the globe. So it gives you that additional reach. So what we've done is when we've looked into social media, right now we have something called the listening room within Dubai Tourism. We are operating 108 channels across the world, and these are channels that we own and manage on a daily basis. We are monitoring and conversing with people on a real-time basis, and also engaging with them on the mediums that's very familiar to them. And they're the anomalies like China and Russia, which have their own unique channels as well. Some of them help us monitor and gauge every activation that we're doing and how we can maybe best benefit from our campaigns and what we can tweak. And other things are creating opportunities for us. So let's say there's a celebrity or an influencer with a certain number of followers from a certain market that matters to us as well. We're alerted in advance when they talk about Dubai. We can engage with that person. And if they're in Dubai, we can actually create, and we've done this with China. When we found out there was a celebrity within the fashion world from China in Dubai, we welcomed him. He actually responded. So we then created an itinerary for one day, which he dedicated to us, which was relevant to him and his audience. And then he agreed to give us the footage that we captured behind the scenes to promote to the Chinese. And he pushed it through his channel as well. That was another thing that we used this for. Then we go all the way through to something we recently did with Shah Rukh Khan, using the influence of Bollywood and his celebrity profile to really communicate not just to the Indian market, but to the diaspora, as well as the markets that are influenced by Bollywood as well. And that had given us it became the third most trending piece of content in 48 hours. We had 45 million engagements off the back of that. So these are the kind of things that we're really trying on different markets and different times, and whatever works, try to apply it on different markets as well.
Yeah, but they sound incredibly successful for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and do you think that translates into people actually then coming to the destination, or is that quite hard to measure?
Actually, in some cases, it's a bit more sowing the seeds and then eventually reaping the benefits. But in some cases, like the Indian model, for example, no, we saw immediate impact from that as well. We can see the trend grow. We can see, in terms of search, absolutely, across the board.
Yeah.
We can see immediately, for example, with this one in particular, 48 hours after the video went out, there was about 31% increase in Google search from India on Dubai. So there are things that you can monitor and gauge immediately. And then also with the partnerships that we've built with the likes of TripAdvisor, Expedia, and we can see if that actually is translated into people getting interested in the destination on those platforms as well. So there is a certain way of linking those activities, of course.
Well, and it adds to the legitimacy of it. You know,
Absolutely.
It's easy for all of us to be like, come here, it's awesome, great, experience it. But when you have someone who, people, in that region, who's relevant to that audience, comes and says it, it's much more powerful.
Absolutely.
You know, and much
Yeah.
more impactful.
Yeah. And do you find that that translates across all types of traveller, or does it differ, for example, for the luxury traveller? Would they prefer a more bespoke sort of experience as opposed to, you know, the social media sort of experience?
I think from our experience, it's more about the target audience themselves and within those markets themselves. Because in some cases, some markets rely very heavily on, let's say, for example, Snapchat in the Nordics. It's for a age group, I would say, between 35 and 55, which I wouldn't have associated Snapchat for that age group, let's say, based on our region and who consumes Snapchat in our region. So I think it's more about the anomalies within those markets as opposed to certain segments globally.
Yeah. And Your Excellency, I mean, have you had experience with using social media to benefit the destination as such?
I can't, it's more or less the same as what Issam said, but I mean, if you'll allow me to add 2 points. One is I'd like to, I debate as to whether, Shah Rukh Khan would give legitimacy, because, Shah Rukh Khan, then again, did it for something, right?
Of course.
Whereas I think if you want credibility and legitimacy, you have to figure out how do I get the different segments of Indians, how do I get their views, their positive views on Dubai or Abu Dhabi, and convey them to the interested Indian traveler, someone who I can relate to. No one, I think, in India, if you'll allow me to say, can say I'm like Shah Rukh Khan in a sense, right? But it's good for spreading awareness. It's a very efficient and quick channel to get the word out. From our side, I mean, we do have social media channels. We do use them. Be it for the destination, visit Abu Dhabi or Abu Dhabi events, and we also have them in various forms and formats, sea trips in China, on various platforms there. But I think something that I'd like to talk about, which is very unique to us, is the Visit Abu Dhabi app, which I would like to urge everyone to download. It's an award-winning app. We got an award at the government summit in Dubai last year. It's available in 10 languages. And it's very well integrated with TripAdvisor, as well as other softwares where you can develop your own itineraries and so on and so forth. I think these tools are tools that can, the trick is not to have them just to engage a traveler when they're in Abu Dhabi. I want you to engage on this app before you even come here, before you decide to come here. And it all comes down to the content you put in. Be it, things along the lines of VR, and we've had very good experiments with that. We ran a campaign with CNN, took several parts of our destination and gave you that overall experience. But also the other trick is these apps and these technological tools, whatever they are, have to learn. And you have to use whatever you have at your disposal to get them to learn about this traveler and push relevant experiences and content to them. Yes, I can let you book flights and hotels and all of that there, but how do I learn what you like based on whether you allow me to see your location, based on whether you allow me to listen to the music you like listening to, based on whether, if I see that this guy goes to museums all the time, then, things that we're working on are a more intelligent way of interacting with you. This is important. But how do I draw you in? That's also a trick. I don't have to draw you in only if you want to travel to Abu Dhabi, but also based on the very unique, high-quality content I have there. Yeah. So that's the educational element of it, and that's something we're also focusing on. And another thing that I'd like to also share with you, and I have my colleagues from the Louvre Abu Dhabi here, is how do you get, how would you get someone, that's a question we always ask ourselves, we think we have the answer, is how do you get someone to visit a museum more than once? If you read, there's a lot of literature on this, and every person involved in running museums thinks about this, and one of the most important tools is technology. Technology can augment and enhance your experience when you visit a museum. But also technology can build that loyalty in you and make you come back, and the same also applies to a destination. I hope that's my 2 pence on this conversation and technology.
Yeah. And we touched on it earlier about encouraging repeat visits, to the UAE, and I think a big part that drives that is the constant innovation that happens here, and the new things that are coming up, and so on.
You spoke about something before I talked, and I think myself, Issam, and our colleagues and other tourism boards in the UAE, our futures are intertwined. And in one very important element where we talked, it's about service quality. You know, he's very much interested in the experience of a tourist in Abu Dhabi. If not for everything, but he wants to make sure that a tourist in Abu Dhabi is happy. And the same goes for me. The same goes for me versus other Emirates. So there are also linkages. And that maybe is a theme and a discussion for another day, but there are also areas where tourism boards you will find have mutual interests and collaborate. So healthy competition and collaboration. But the best part and the most important thing about your experience, I think, and that's based on us as travelers, and also it's about who's with you when you're visiting. Who narrates? Who tells you about the destination? And a very important element of our success is having that well-educated, well-rounded Emirati, UAE national who can converse in many languages, who's a good ambassador for you, who can tell you about the destination. A lot of us know this. The person sitting with you in that car and walking around with you in the city is the person who makes or breaks your experience. So that's just something I wanted to add, and that's not technology or anything. That's just investment in education and training.
Yeah, and that's coming back to that authentic experience again, isn't it? About face-to-face interaction and stories from locals who live here. So. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so just to wrap up, we'll just have a look at some of the, what you believe to be some of the biggest trends, maybe from the Middle East, but also looking internationally as well in terms of what people are looking for. What do you believe is the future for experiential travel in the region? I know the UAE has its 2021 strategy, which is incredible in its goals and its aims. What do you predict for the city, for Dubai, for the future when it comes to experiential travel? What do you see?
I think for us, it's about how do we make sure that we're leveraging, again, this synergies that we've created between the private and public sector. And I think also going back on the experience aspect of it, because experience is not just about what the city has to offer, but as His Excellency mentioned, it's also how the experience is being delivered. Because again, when we recently announced the launch of the Tourism College, the idea behind that was because we know that when people fly into Dubai, whether it's Emirates Airlines or Etihad, there are certain service levels that they expect. And that already builds the anticipation and the expectation when they touch ground. And then when they go into the immigration and beyond, every single touch point is an opportunity to either make or break that experience. And nowadays with social media, if something is good or bad, it's shared instantly. So we cannot leave anything to chance. So the idea about the tourism college is to create vocational programs where, first of all, in certain areas we are creating programs that educate the local Emiratis in certain areas to become tour guides, and also going up to other areas where we're introducing a Dubai way of doing things. When it comes to hotels, we know that all the big chains have the best training programs, but what makes the experience of them coming to that hotel in Dubai different than that same chain anywhere else in the world? And then also there are others who are actually with restaurants and hotels. We're talking about gastronomy. We're talking about so many other touch points that we're encouraging tourists to go into. How do we make sure that those experiences are also looked after, so that by the time they make their journey back to Dubai, every single one of them has been positive? So those are the kind of things that, as far as we're concerned, we're trying to make sure that we can influence, educate, and encourage the development of that sector to make sure that this becomes a 2020 or 2021 for the UAE becomes the first milestone to a longer journey that's to come, and that's sustainable.
Yeah. Okay. And Simon, I mean, you've been here in Dubai for many years. What do you see the future of experiential travel here?
I think all the new experiences that are being built, the theme parks, throughout the whole Emirates are going to be a major draw card for all tourists coming to this region, along with the sporting events, along with the concerts, along with the shows. The Pearl is going to be something that this region has never seen before. And as actually said, people will come back and see that again and again. But we also need to remember, 70% of our customers, the one thing they definitely want to do when they arrive in Dubai is go to the desert. And it's not necessarily driving around in the four-wheel drive and going dune bashing or seeing a belly dancer. It's the fact that you can actually just go to the desert and you do meet Emiratis, you do meet Bedouins, you do see how culturally the country, it's progressed, and you've got all these modern things such as Burj Khalifa, But then you can also go back and see, I was talking to one of my colleagues who used to be here at the Trade Centre, and she was explaining to me how her grandmother used to walk to a lane during the winter to collect firewood and bring it back to Dubai to sell. And those stories you can't find anywhere else. You don't find them in a museum. You don't find them necessarily in a book, but you find out by speaking to the Emiratis who are here and the local people. And I think that is always going to be a major component of visiting this destination.
Yeah. So it's almost like going back to the roots, but bringing in elements of technology to communicate it and so on. And you mentioned education, which I think will be a big part of it, and that service delivery. So yes, as a traveller yourself, is there a particular memorable experience you've encountered? Andy, I know you've probably travelled quite extensively, like many in this business. Is there a particular country or destination where you've had a really memorable, authentic experience?
Now you're putting me on the spot. Well, I think, talking to Simon's point, I think there's something to, it's this kind of concept of micro tourism or micro travel. And you look at companies, globally now, like Airbnb, that they're not doing kind of the stay, they're doing the experience. So you can stay at someone's house and then you can learn how they make dinner. You can take a yoga lesson for them. So for me, as someone who's traveled a lot, that's my next thing, and that's where I see, Dubai and hearing all the rich heritage and the story and learning all these stories of the Emirati and the Bedouin. I think that's where there's this great opportunity for Dubai to carve out an amazing niche, because I think the demand is there. So for me, I'm going to kind of skirt that and not say a favorite place or favorite experience, but I think my favorite experience is something that it's unique. It's something that I feel like I'm not cattle. I'm not part of a gigantic group. It's something that I remember and I say, yeah, I want to go back there, and I either want to get a similar experience or now I want to dive deeper. And so I think for us, as people representing this great place, I think that's the goal at the end of the day, is that give them a taste and let them come back and dive deeper and experience more.
Yeah. Well, I think for many people here, certainly residents, that question often comes up, where after the UAE? And there's not many places that really exist. So I'm going to leave it there. I think there's probably a few questions from the audience. Just over there.
Hi, my name is Natasha. I'm a travel influencer at Eat, Sleep, Shoot, Travel. I just wanted to share with you, even though you have all these new technological things, I just wanted to share with you my two favourite things. So in Dubai, I tell everybody when they go to Dubai to get on an Abra. I've got my dirham. I love it. I say you have to do that. So it's something very simple, but that's what I say. When people, a lot of people say, "What do I do in Dubai?" Yeah, it's great to go to the theme parks, but that's one of my favourite things to do. When I go to Abu Dhabi, my favourite thing is to go to the mosque. I'm a photographer. Every time I go to Abu Dhabi, this weekend, I will go and take pictures of the mosque. So they're simple things. So it's also great to me personally. I like the high tech and the new, but also as well, it's to make sure that you keep promoting the simple things and the things that that are affordable, because obviously the mosque is free and the Abra is a dirham. So it's just remembering that as well.
Absolutely.
There's a question over there. We should try going to the memorial Wahat al-Karama, opposite from the mosque. Go see it. It's a very nice art piece.
Hi, good evening everybody. It was such a pleasure. I just walked in by chance, and when I saw this, the word you already use, Your Excellency, the healthy competition. It's so nice to see Dubai and Abu Dhabi sitting side by side and competing with the... Really, I have been here 50 years in Dubai. Sheikh Rashid used to be my mentor. And what this Emirat has gone to is really amazing. And what you have done, and as you have mentioned, social media and all, I do my live TV on the social media. And I would really like to get your cards and start interviewing you on the social
Before we represent Abu Dhabi and Dubai, we're Emirati. That's how it is. That's how we were raised.
Omar Bakri from Al Kasabi Travel from Saudi Arabia. I just wanted to check regarding the experience. What's your plan about the virtual experience in Abu Dhabi and in Dubai?
Can you?
Virtual experience?
Yeah, virtual experience. Do you have any plans for virtual experience? While I'm in Saudi Arabia, I can have the same feeling and experience of being in a desert here in Dubai, watching on spectacles and this. Do you have any plans?
Yeah, I think from our side, from Dubai's perspective, we're doing a lot on the virtual reality aspect of it, and we're obviously the technology is evolving more and more, and it's still relatively new, but there's a lot of advancements that have already been made, and we've already experimented it, and even on our stand now, you can come in and see that experience, the 360 experience that exists, whether it's on a simple device or it's within the eye set and the goggles themselves. So yes, we're definitely doing a lot of that, and it also covers different parts of the city, whether it's going into the museums like the Ittihad Museum to actually get a closer look at the details of what exists there, or the deserts, or maybe within the city aspect of things as well. But we are looking down that technology, and as it's evolving, we're trying to invest time and effort towards making sure that experience becomes as real. I mean, after all, there's only so much we can take that to before we convince people to come and actually experience it firsthand.
Do you think of building some centers like in Saudi Arabia or in Europe with a small amount for them to make a trial? Is it going to be convenient?
What we've done is in some cases we've had almost like a moving exhibition. We've tried it in some cities, but what we're trying to do is make it easier for people to be able to maybe download those experiences themselves and be able to have those experiences, share those experiences within their friends to make it as accessible as possible. Yes, we are working down that route.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, thanks for a great session. My name is Neda, I'm representing LinkedIn. I have a question. I know that this is more around experiential experiences for a consumer, but what about experiential experiences or experiences for businesses that are coming to the UAE, particularly to Abu Dhabi or Dubai? How do you think about tackling that, and is it a different strategy for business tourism?
Are you talking about business tourism in terms of what, conventions, MICE, or are you talking about businesses relocating?
I guess both.
Because you started off with businesses relocating and.
No, I think both. I think mostly MICE or those that are coming for events here. But happy to hear your thoughts.
I mean, on MICE, in the process of bidding for any event, in the process of increasing awareness about Abu Dhabi as a business tourism destination, it involves not only showcasing our conferencing facilities, but also showcasing the destination. It's affordability for the various segments of business travelers for a certain event, the incentives we give there, the itineraries we can develop. So this is it's a must. Today, it's not only about what does your conference facility look like and all of that, but what else can the 10,000 dentists or the 5,000 doctors experience while they're at this destination, and at what cost, and how efficient is the whole itinerary designed for them. So it is very important. It is very important, and it is a key success factor.
I think to add to that, it's with the bidding process, just to add to Saif's point, the bid itself will contain, depending on, like for example, if it's medical, a lot of them, I remember until recently, they were not interested in the 5-star hotels or beach resorts. So you need to make sure that you show that the infrastructure exists for 3-star, 4-star property. And different ones have different requirements to hotels. So the infrastructure is important, connectivity is important. And again, the itineraries based on the 10,000 delegates, how the breadth of the options, entertainment as well, because at the end of the day, they want to look after those delegations as well. Then if you look at the setting up and establishing, for us, it's almost like a cycle from a tourism industry perspective. When you bring people to Dubai, you want to represent, first of all, the diversity that exists within, from my perspective, the diversity that exists in the city itself. People have chosen Dubai to be their home. Business visitors, a lot of them come to Dubai, or I would assume Abu Dhabi as well, a lot of them for the first time, not knowing what to expect. But then they're usually, more often than not, pleasantly surprised, end up coming back again and again, extending their stay next time into that, I hate the word, but pleasure experience, mixing the two together. But then it's also becoming more apparent that they keep coming back with their friends and family. Eventually, the decision makers end up establishing their regional or global headquarters in Dubai, which then starts attracting more meetings to Dubai and more people to relocate to Dubai. So it's a cycle and visiting friends and relative aspect of it. So it is a cycle that's very important for us, of course.
And I think from, sorry.
Please.
I think from, our perspective, it is a synergistic thing because, we'll work very closely with DTCM, we'll work very closely with Arabian Adventures, and so we could rent out the facility, to large groups, or we could become a stop, upon a large group or upon a small group. So it's just this, at the end of the day, it's pushing the UAE as a destination, not just Arabian Adventures, La Pearl, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, etc.
Hi, my name is Roma Slavkat. I'm from Khaleej Times, and my question has to do with events and the role that they play in bringing international visitors. For example, I was in Thailand last year, and before I left, one of my friends told me, if you are thinking of coming again, come during the water festival. This is something where you can experience what it is to be Thai. It's how you can experience Thainess, and that's got me thinking, is there any plan that you have when it comes to events in the region and how they can actually put the UAE on the global level?
Start if you want. So at the Abu Dhabi Events Bureau, we try to manage, or we manage actually, we manage our events and try to manage events of the private sector in a sense. And without, at the risk of sounding scientific, I think the trick is to identify what events cater to the needs of certain nationalities or demographics, and try to align and have these events take place in their holidays. So that's step number one, and that's a given, and I think every tourism board does that. And then it's about as well, how do you extend the length of stay? I'll give you a small example. Abu Dhabi a couple of years ago, had several events in the food segment. Abu Dhabi Food Festival, Abu Dhabi Gourmet, SIAL, the business sort of B2B event, and they all took place at different times of the year. And what would happen was when a traveler would come in for that certain segment, for that certain event, if it's leisure or business, he would either stay for 2 nights in March, but he's not going to come back in December for 2 nights. But what we did last year is that we clustered them all together in December. And what we saw is that the average traveler or a visitor for these events stayed for 4 nights instead of 2. So the trick is in doing these things. I think it is very important to play to the needs of priority markets. Chinese New Year has to be a staple on our calendar. We have to activate the city. Last year on Maria Island, Yas Island really activated themselves for the Chinese travelers, and we did really well. For the Saudi travelers in their vacations, we had Mother of the Nation Festival, short, little over a week, 200,000 visitors, did really well. We have the Formula One, it does well. Last year we kicked off the Winter Festival in Yas Island with Miral, and the highlight of it was Coldplay performing on New Year's. The hotels were sold out for 3 nights in the weekend. That's going to happen again. We have to chase the winter sun. We have to offer that to a Western traveler, and at the same time, we provide this 2-week-long experience capped with an A-grade celebrity performing on New Year's Eve. Things along these lines. Events are key to attracting people. You have to play to their needs and offer them in their holidays, as well as throughout the year, but especially in their holidays. And last but not least, you have to collaborate with neighbors, in a sense. Certain travel, certain events should also take part within the same kind of month or whatever, to ensure that there is a flow. It's very simple, and that's the healthy sort of collaboration / competition we talked about. The synchronization of calendars to a certain degree.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm French Algerian. I came here to Dubai and I love it. And I was a bit surprised by the dimension actually of the city. So it's huge. And I would like to ask you a question about the Arabic soul. In Europe, in America, in Russia, in Asia, you find a lot of shows that give the experience to the public of what is the culture of the country. I don't see really that in Dubai. It's not a critic, but it's something that I would like to see.
Sure.
Arabian experience in the desert is fantastic, but I think that you have a great opera, but apart from Jurassic Park or Mary Poppins, or I would like to see something that is really Arabic and showing the Arabic dancer that we can see in the desert, and other festivities that you have during only one period during the year, I guess. But I came outside of that period, so it's a pity for me. But do you think you're going to implement something that will show more about the Arabic spirit in brackets?
Sure.
Yes. Thank you.
That's actually a very good point. I think there's a lot that already is happening, but you're right. They're usually very seasonal. We have, not to repeat what my colleague said, but we have camel festivals here as well, with the camel races and everything that goes on around that side of I would say the sport. There's also the experiences that we have within Hatta, another part within with a lesser known part of Dubai, which has a completely different landscape that people are used to seeing in Dubai, which also has the date-related festival as well, things that are culturally relevant. We also have periods of time where we have poetry festivals that happen in Dubai and poetry competitions that happen in Dubai as well, something that's very true to the region and to the Emirati culture. So there are a lot of these things that are happening. Plus, there are a lot more activities that are being created now, which are more of a permanent experience within a, let's say, a dining experience, but also a thematic dining experience which has a lot of local cultural elements within that as well. One of the places that I would definitely recommend you visit is the Sheikh Mohammed Center for Cultural Understanding, which is a place where you can actually engage with them, interact with them, learn a lot more about the culture, and even how historically those houses were set, and the courtyards within those houses, and those experiences as well. But there are a lot more that can be done in terms of a permanent fixture, as opposed to the festivities and festivals that exist purely on the Arabic culture side, which we will be seeing a lot more coming online. Thank you.
Okay. Great, gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been most informative. I know the audience will agree, and really appreciate you taking the time to come and speak about experiential travel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.